They told me tears were signs of weakness, leaks in the armor of a person too fragile for real life. Maybe that's why I stopped showing them. Maybe that's why I learned to store my pain in a deeper place, a place no one could reach. But pain doesn't disappear. It grows. It expands. And sometimes it becomes an ocean. My name is Jordan Hale, born in a small Ohio town where silence was currency and smiles were weapons. People in places like that love to pretend they care. What they really care about is how much they can take from you before you break. I learned that the hard way. But before the storm, before I returned stronger, colder, sharper, I was just a kid who believed in people too much. And believing in the wrong people destroyed everything I had. The story started unraveling when I was 17. Back then, my world revolved around three things: my mom, my best friend Dante, and the girl I used to think I'd marry one day, Skylar James. She had a way of laughing like she'd never been hurt and lying like she'd never been caught. I didn't know either of those were warning signs until later. My mom worked late shifts at the diner, and I spent most nights helping her close shop. She'd always say the same thing as she wiped down the counters. "Baby, keep your heart clean, no matter what the world throws at you." I wish life worked like that. I wish hearts were washable, cleanable, erasable. But pain stains. One night after closing the diner, I walked home, the cold air stinging my face. It was November, the month everything went wrong, and the sky was the color of regret. My house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, the last one before the woods. It wasn't fancy, but it was home. When I walked inside, I noticed the silence first. My mom was usually humming or complaining about the diner manager. But that night, nothing. Just the sound of my own breath echoing back at me. I found her on the kitchen floor. Her apron still on, her hair still tied back, her skin cold. There are sounds that don't come from your throat, they come from your soul. The sound I made that night wasn't human. It was grief, born raw and uncontrollable. The paramedics said it was a heart attack. A heart attack brought on by stress. Stress caused by debt. Debt caused by the diner's unpaid overtime, and the manager who'd been stealing her wages for months. The manager, of course, denied everything. Money disappeared, paperwork misfiled, witnesses never saw a thing, and the owner, he shrugged and said he'd look into it. They never did. They left my mother in the ground, and me in a world that suddenly felt 10 times heavier. The town pitied me for a week. They brought casseroles and fake hugs, whispered prayers, and promises of help that evaporated within days. People love tragedy when it's fresh. They lose interest once the mess becomes inconvenient. The only ones who stayed were Dante and Skylar, or at least I thought they stayed. The funeral was a blur, black clothes, wet hands on my shoulders, hugs that felt more like pity than warmth. After everyone left, I sat by the grave, staring at the dirt piled over the only person who'd ever truly loved me. "I'm gonna make you proud," I whispered, "even if the world tries to crush me." Behind me, footsteps crunched on the grass. "Jordan." It was Skylar, her eyes red, her voice soft. She looked scared to touch me, like I was a glass statue ready to shatter. She sat beside me and rested her head on my shoulder. I'm here for you," she whispered. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe someone. But grief makes people blind, and I didn't see the cracks forming beneath my feet. She stayed with me every day after the funeral. She checked in, brought food, made sure I wasn't drowning in silence. Sometimes she held me when the nights became unbearable. Sometimes she cried with me. I didn't know those tears of hers weren't for me or my mother. They were for the guilt she carried. The guilt of betraying me long before my mother died. 1 month after the funeral, the school year resumed, and I walked through those halls like a ghost. Everyone felt distant, even familiar faces looked different, colder. I could sense the whispers around me, the pitiful looks, the pity I didn't want. Dante was the only one who acted normal. He bumped my shoulder, cracked jokes, dragged me into conversations when I checked out mentally. He kept me from falling apart completely. At least, that's what I believed. But grief isn't a fog, It's an amplifier. It sharpens your intuition. It teaches you to notice things you once ignored. Like the way Dante's eyes would flick towards Skylar a little too long. Or the way Skylar would avoid my gaze whenever we were in a group. Or the way conversations would stop abruptly when I approached. Little signs, tiny cracks. Cracks that would later split wide open. Life got harder. The bills stacked up. The house was slipping away. The diner wouldn't pay what they owed my mom, and the owner pretended the entire situation was an unfortunate misunderstanding. I started working 2 part-time jobs while still trying to finish high school. Sleep became a stranger. Food tasted like cardboard. My future felt like a fading echo. But even with everything falling apart, the real betrayal was still brewing behind my back, waiting for the right moment to strike. It came on a Wednesday. A cold, rainy, miserable Wednesday, proof that the universe loves symbolism. I was heading to Dante's house after school. He'd texted me, saying he had something important to talk about. I assumed he wanted to discuss college applications or maybe something to distract me from my life. I didn't expect pain, not this kind, not from him. When I reached his house, the door was slightly open. I heard voices inside, whispers, hurried, nervous. I stepped quietly into the hallway. And then I heard Skylar's voice. I can't keep lying to him, Dante. It's killing me. My heart stopped mid-beat. Dante whispered, "We had no choice. You know what would have happened if he found out." Found out what? Skylar sobbed. But after his mom died, how do we keep pretending? I feel sick every time I see him. My entire body froze. I moved closer, each step heavy, each breath sharp. "We should have told him before," Skylar continued. "But now he trusts us more than anyone. He thinks we're the only ones on his side." My lungs tightened. Trust, that word tasted like poison. Then Dante said the words that broke whatever pieces I had left. "Sky, we didn't mean for it to happen, but we can't undo it now. He'll hate us forever." I pushed the door open. "What will I hate you forever for?" They snapped their heads toward me. Skylar's face drained of color, Dante's jaw locked. And that silence, that single horrible silence, told me everything. You too," I whispered. Skylar's eyes filled with tears. "Jordan, I'm so sorry." "You've been together," my voice cracked. "How long?" Dante swallowed hard. "Bro, please." "How long?" Skylar broke first, her voice trembling. Since before your mom passed." The world tilted. My vision blurred. Something inside me cracked so loudly, I almost heard it. "You were with me," I whispered, "holding me while I cried, while my life was falling apart, and the whole time you were." "We didn't mean for it to happen," Dante said, stepping forward. "It just—" I laughed, not a real laugh, a broken, hollow sound. "Accidental betrayal, that's new." Skylar reached for me. "Jordan, please, we didn't want to hurt you." "But you did." My voice was ice. "You already did." Dante stepped between us. "Look, man, we're still your friends." "Friends," I repeated, almost choking. "You two stabbed me in the back, then want to call it friendship." Skylar sobbed harder. "Jordan, please." I stepped back. Then I said the words that would haunt them later. "You think my tears make me weak. You don't realize they're filling an ocean, and one day I'll drown you both in it." I walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Their guilt was loud enough to follow me out the door. After that day, school became hell. Not because of the breakup, we were never officially dating, but because betrayal spreads like wildfire. Rumors twisted things. People whispered that I was overreacting, that Dante and Skylar didn't do anything that bad, that I should move on. People love to defend the betrayer. It's easier than facing the truth. Dante and Skylar pretended everything was fine. They held hands publicly within a week, walked the halls boldly, smiled like they'd earned happiness. But guilt is a parasite. It always shows. Skylar started losing weight. She couldn't look me in the eye. Dante snapped at small things, picked fights, avoided being alone. Their paradise was cracking. Still, the world expected me to be the one who apologized. Because people like me, the quiet ones, the grieving ones, the ones who have lost everything, were expected to be understanding, forgiving. But forgiveness is just another way of letting people hurt you twice. I refused. Instead, I focused on surviving. I worked. I studied. I planned. Every struggle, every tear, every humiliation, I stored it. I locked it away. I kept filling that ocean inside me, silently, patiently. I didn't know then just how massive that ocean would become, or how many people I would drown in it later. The first major turning point came during senior year. College representatives visited our school, offering scholarship opportunities. I knew my chances were slim. My grades had slipped after Mom died, but I still applied. I had to. It was my only shot at escaping a life that felt determined to break me. One day, my guidance counselor, Mrs. Kerr, pulled me aside. "Jordan," she said gently, "I need to speak with you privately." I followed her into her office. She closed the door, sat down, and took a breath, the kind of breath people take before delivering bad news. "I'm afraid something happened with your scholarship file." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "Your application essay was flagged for plagiarism." I blinked. "What?" She turned her screen around. And there it was, my name, my student ID, and the accusation. Academic dishonesty. My chest tightened. I didn't plagiarize anything. "I believe you," she said softly, "but the system is strict. We'll need to appeal." My pulse pounded. "Who reported me?" Mrs. Kerr hesitated again. Then she whispered, "I can't officially say, but I overheard the principal mentioning a complaint that came from another student, someone close to you." My blood ran cold. Dante. Skylar. Someone close. The betrayal wasn't over. It was evolving. By the time I left her office, something inside me had shifted. Something important, something irreversible. If I ever had any pieces of innocence left, they died in that moment. I walked through the hallway, numb and heavy, but focused. Focus like cold iron, focus like a blade. I found Dante and Skylar sitting together near the courtyard, laughing, always laughing when the damage wasn't theirs. When they saw me, they stopped. I approached slowly. Skylar's face paled, again. Dante stiffened, again. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I just looked at them, really looked at them, the way you look at strangers whose faces you want to memorize for future reasons. "Congratulations," I said quietly. They glanced at each other nervously. "For what?" Dante asked. "For the fire you started," I said. "I wasn't planning revenge before, I was planning escape, but now you made the rules." Skylar swallowed hard. "Jordan." "You'll both remember this," I said. "Not today, not tomorrow, but soon, when the ocean finally rises." I walked away. For the first time, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt purpose. Cold, pure, focused purpose. The kind that builds empires. The kind that ruins people. The kind that transforms tears into weapons. The world watched me drown in silence. They had no idea I was learning how to breathe underwater. They had no idea what I'd become. They had no idea what was coming. What waited for them. What waited for everyone who thought pain made me weak. They were wrong. And soon, they would find out just how wrong. The day I realized no one was coming to save me was the day I stopped waiting for rescue. People think revenge is born from rage, but that's only half true. Rage sparks it, yes, but cold logic, discipline, and silence are what sharpen it. Silence became my greatest ally. Everyone thought I was broken. Even Dante and Skylar believed I would fade into the background, a footnote in their happily ever after. But that silence they mocked was the laboratory where I rebuilt myself. And somewhere deep inside, where the grief sat like a stone, something venomous began to grow. It started with the scholarship appeal. I refused to let the false accusation bury me. I spent 2 nights drafting an appeal letter so meticulous, so thorough, the academic review board couldn't ignore it. Mrs. Kerr helped. She believed in me genuinely, and she wasn't the type who pitied broken kids. She supported the ones who fought back. When we finally sent the appeal, she squeezed my shoulder. "You're stronger than you think, Jordan. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." If she knew what kind of strength was forming inside me, maybe she would have been more careful saying that. 2 weeks later, the board ruled in my favor. The plagiarism accusation was false. I got the scholarship. But the damage had already been done. Opportunities missed, application deadlines passed, other scholarships closed. But winning the appeal reminded me of something I had almost forgotten. I wasn't powerless. I wasn't helpless. And I wasn't done. Graduation approached like a storm no one could outrun. People were suddenly pretending to be my friends again, smiling, congratulating me, acting like the past year hadn't happened. They wanted pictures, signatures in yearbooks, one last high school memory. Because when people believe you're weak, they love attaching themselves to your story. It makes them feel superior. I didn't give them anything. I walked the hallways without speaking unless necessary. I kept my head down, but my eyes open. I watched Dante and Skylar. Their relationship had started strong, forbidden, secret, thrilling, but now it was rotting. Guilt had replaced excitement. Every time I passed them, they stiffened. Skylar's shoulders tightened. Dante's jaw clenched. Their laughter felt forced, the kind people perform to hide cracks. And oh, the cracks were widening. Dante had become paranoid, checking over his shoulder constantly, waiting for me to strike. Skylar was anxious, constantly apologizing for things she didn't do, constantly seeking reassurance. They tried to pretend they weren't scared. But fear sticks to people, and theirs was obvious. One day in the cafeteria, I caught them staring at me, whispering, nervous. Dante nudged Skylar. She shook her head. He muttered something. She looked down. I knew what they were wondering. When will he get revenge? What will he do? How will he do it? They had no idea that the worst revenge is the kind you don't see coming. The quiet kind, the patient kind, the kind that doesn't require shouting or violence. The kind that waits until you're standing on a cliff, then hands you the final push. I didn't plan on seeing them again after graduation, but small towns have a way of keeping people entangled. The first major collision happened at the senior awards night. Parents filled the auditorium. Students wore fake smiles and ironed clothes. I sat alone. My mother should have been there, and she would have been proud, but fate robbed her of that moment. When my name was called for the scholarship award, people clapped politely. Mrs. Kerr clapped the loudest. Dante and Skylar didn't clap at all. I walked across the stage, accepted the certificate, shook hands, posed for a photo. Then I passed by them. Skylar kept her eyes down. Dante forced a smile. "Congrats, man," he whispered. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Silence was louder. I walked out of the auditorium early. I wasn't interested in staying for the rest of the ceremony. I just wanted the night to end. But in the parking lot, I heard footsteps behind me. "Jordan, wait." Skylar's voice. I turned slowly. She stood there alone, hugging herself, her dress fluttering in the warm night breeze. She looked smaller than I remembered. Fragile. "I need to talk to you," she said. I crossed my arms. "Why now?" She swallowed. "Because I can't take it anymore." I raised a brow. "Take what?" "The guilt," she whispered. "The way you look at us, the way you don't look at us, I feel like I'm going insane." "You should have thought of that before." She stepped closer. "I know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. What Dante and I did, it wasn't fair. You didn't deserve it." "I know." She blinked. "You know." "Yeah, I know I didn't deserve it." The relief on her face lasted only a second before I added, "And I know you're not sorry. You're scared." Her lips parted, trembling. "I'm not." "You're scared," I repeated. "Scared of what comes next. Scared because you don't know who I'm becoming. Scared because guilt doesn't let you sleep." She froze. I stepped closer, my voice low. "You think I'm dangerous now. You have no idea what dangerous is." Her breath hitched. "Jordan, please don't hurt us." I smiled, not warmly, but with the same cold politeness people use at funerals. "I don't need to hurt you, Skylar." She looked confused. I leaned in. "You're already doing that to yourselves." She took a shaky step back. I just wanted to apologize." "And I heard you," I said calmly, "but hearing it doesn't mean forgiving it." She choked on a sob. "I miss you." "Don't," I said. "Missing me is the worst thing that can happen to you right now." Then I walked away. That was the first real seed I planted. Not revenge, not punishment, but fear. Fear grows faster than anger. And it spreads wider than truth. Graduation day arrived with brutal sunlight and hot air. The football field shimmered under the heat, the folding chairs lined in neat rows like graves ready for the future. I sat among my peers, listening to speeches filled with lies about unity and hope and lifelong friendships. Dante and Skylar sat 6 rows ahead of me, close enough for me to see the tension in their shoulders, the stiffness in their posture. When our names were called, we walked the stage. Cameras flashed, parents cheered, lives shifted. But the real turning point came after the ceremony, when everyone gathered on the field to take photos. Groups formed, laughter echoed, confetti floated through the air. I stood alone under the bleachers, avoiding the crowds. Then I saw it, Dante and Skylar arguing near the goalpost, their voices low but intense. Skylar wiping tears, Dante running a hand through his hair, frustrated. The cracks were widening. Good. Let them drown each other. Let the guilt rot their relationship from the inside out. I didn't have to do anything. Yet. Summer arrived slowly, then all at once. For the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of direction. I worked long shifts at the mechanic shop in town, greasy hands, aching muscles, the smell of oil and metal lingering on me like a badge of survival. The job kept me grounded. The paycheck kept the house afloat. I saved every penny. I planned. Revenge wasn't about the past anymore. It was about the future. Leaving that town wasn't enough. I wanted to become someone powerful enough that the same people who laughed at me would eventually depend on me. Beg me. Fear me. Respect me. Or hate me, I didn't care which. As long as they remembered my name. By August, things had shifted dramatically. Dante and Skylar broke up. Not quietly. Not cleanly. The breakup hit the town like fresh gossip, buzzing through the diners and barbershops like wildfire. I didn't know the details at first, I didn't care to. But then bits of the truth started reaching me. Skylar cheated on Dante. With someone else. The way she cheated on me with him. People recreate their sins like patterns. They repeat their betrayals on new victims. I knew that. I expected it. But what I didn't expect was that the breakup would destroy Dante. He spiraled. Started drinking. Stopped showing up for work. Got into fights. His friends abandoned him. Skylar's friends turned against her. And all of it happened without me lifting a single finger. Sometimes life takes your enemies down for you. Sometimes you just have to give the first little push. But the real revenge, the real storm, didn't begin until the day I got the letter. The one that changed everything. The one that set the path for the next 5 years of my life. I came home late from the shop, exhausted and smelling like burnt rubber. A stack of mail sat on the porch. Bills, junk mail, a coupon book, and one envelope so official-looking it made my stomach turn. I opened it cautiously. Then my world shifted. Dear Mr. Hale, we are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for the Horizon Foundation Full Ride Academic Grant. Full ride. Housing, tuition, books, living expenses. Everything. I sat on the porch steps and stared at the letter for a long time. My chest tightened, not with fear or grief, but with something rare. Hope. A future. A chance. A way out. And that's when the real idea formed. Not just to leave. Not just to succeed. But to return. Stronger. Richer. Untouchable. Revenge is pointless if you come back the same person. Revenge is poetry when you come back transformed. I left that small town 2 weeks later. No goodbyes. No last looks. No closure. Just a bag, a letter, a burning ambition, and a promise I buried deep in my bones. I'm going to build an ocean so vast, so powerful, that everyone who drowned me in silence will drown in my success. College wasn't easy. I arrived with no money, no family, and no emotional foundation. I was a storm held together by stubbornness. But suffering teaches endurance. Endurance builds discipline. Discipline becomes power. While other students partied, I studied. While they slept, I strategized. While they drifted through life, I sharpened myself like a weapon. Years passed. I became a name people recognized. The kid who came from nothing, the one who excelled in business analytics, the one who earned internships companies rarely give to undergraduates. Then I became more. I founded a tech analytics startup in my junior year, a project that started as a class assignment and grew into a real company. Investors liked my pitch. They liked my drive. They liked my story. By graduation, I wasn't just a student. I was a CEO. A rising name. A problem people wanted to solve, not ignore. 5 years after I left home, my startup was bought out by a Fortune 500 company for a figure so large it felt unreal. I became one of the youngest division executives in the company's history. I bought a penthouse. I hired a team. I built an empire. And all the while, the promise stayed alive. I would return. Not with tears. Not with anger. But with an ocean so vast they wouldn't know how to swim. One evening, as I sat in my office overlooking the city skyline, my assistant walked in. "Sir, you received another letter," she said, placing a white envelope on my desk. It was from my hometown. The high school. A reunion invitation. 10 years. 10 years since the betrayal. 10 years since the funeral. 10 years since I walked away. The universe has a sense of humor. This was the moment. The return. The beginning of the end. I leaned back in my chair, the city lights reflecting in my glass of bourbon. Then I whispered the words I had waited a decade to say. It's time to drown them.
10 years is enough time for wounds to scab, scars to form, and memories to rot into something unrecognizable. But betrayal has a longer shelf life than forgiveness. 10 years is nothing to a wound that never healed. The reunion invitation sat on my desk for a full hour before I opened it. You are invited to the 10-year Crestwood High reunion. The date, the venue, the RSVP link. Everything was printed in cheerful fonts, pretending to celebrate nostalgia. They didn't know what was coming. They didn't know the boy they left broken was no longer a boy. He was a storm in a suit, a walking consequence with a smile sharp enough to cut. I RSVP'd. Attending. Then I leaned back in my leather chair and whispered to myself. This time they'll drown in my ocean. The weeks leading up to the reunion were calm. Calm in the way that comes before hurricanes, when the wind holds its breath. I didn't tell anyone in my new life what the reunion meant, not my assistant, not my colleagues, not the board. They all thought I was simply returning for nostalgia. I had no interest in nostalgia. I had interest in closure. Not the soft kind. The final kind. The kind that ends with silence. When the day came, I dressed deliberately. Black suit. Subtle grey shirt. No tie. Rolex on my wrist. Cuffs engraved with my initials. Nothing excessive, nothing loud. Just a quiet display of the power they swore I'd never have. My driver pulled up to the school gym, freshly renovated, balloons, banners, a welcome sign that said, "Once a Crestwood Lion, always a Crestwood Lion." If they only knew how funny that sounded. People stepped out of their cars in clusters, laughing in that forced high school never left way. They wore nostalgia like perfume, hoping it hid their regrets. I walked in alone. Silence hit the room like a dropped mirror. Conversations cut short. Smiles froze. Eyes widened. The boy they buried in lies was standing in front of them wearing a suit that cost more than most of their monthly rent. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I just walked to the check-in table. The woman behind it blinked twice. Name. Jordan Hale. Her mouth dropped. She scrambled to find my name. "Welcome back. Wow, you look different," I said. She nodded. "That's the point." The gym was decorated with class photos, banners, fairy lights, all the illusions of warmth. People huddled in clumps talking about their kids, their marriages, their divorces, their small victories. Most of them didn't matter to me. But two faces did. Dante. Skylar. Separate. Far apart. Avoiding each other like poison. Good. They weren't supposed to survive each other. Not after what they did. I made a slow circle through the room, letting whispers trail behind me. "That's Jordan." "No way. He looks successful." Wasn't he the one who? I thought his life fell apart. "He looks like he owns this place." I didn't rush toward Dante or Skylar. Revenge is a dance, not a sprint. Let them fear the moment before it arrives. Fear expands the heart faster than heartbreak. Half an hour passed before someone finally approached me. Of course it had to be Dante. He walked slowly, each step heavy, like guilt was a chain tied around his ankles. He wasn't the golden boy anymore. The once radiant, charming, loud star athlete now looked like a man 10 days past rock bottom, tired eyes, messy hair, worn shoes. "Jordan," he said softly, "you came." I turned to him, expression neutral. Had to see the old place. He swallowed hard. "You look different." "So people keep saying." His eyes darted away, ashamed. I never got the chance to apologize. "That's because you never tried," I replied. His face tightened. "I was a kid, I made mistakes." "You made choices," I corrected. "Mistakes happen by accident, betrayal doesn't." He winced. For a moment he looked like he might walk away, but guilt doesn't let go that easily. "I lost everything after high school," he confessed. "Football, college, Skylar, my job, all of it." "You lost yourself," I said. "Those things were just symptoms." He stared at me, stunned. "You're not even angry." I met his gaze with brutal honesty. "I'm not angry at the man you were, Dante." Hope flickered in his eyes. Then I added, cold and clean, "I just don't respect the man you are." He blinked rapidly, trying not to show the hurt, but it was there, thick, visible. Before he could reply, I walked away. That was enough. Humiliation was never the goal. Truth was. Truth breaks people more than punishment. Skylar found me next. Of course she did. She approached with careful steps, clutching a wine glass with trembling fingers. Time had been gentler to her than Dante, but guilt had not. Her eyes were darker, her smile thinner, her presence smaller. "Jordan," she whispered. I turned. She looked at me like she was seeing a ghost, or maybe seeing her past mistakes dressed in a $6,000 suit. "You look incredible," she said, voice unsteady. "Thank you. I've thought about you," she stammered, "over the years." "I know. You do. People always think about the ones they hurt." Her chest rose sharply, like the words punched her. She tried again. "I'm sorry, truly, for everything." "You're sorry now," I said calmly, "but 10 years ago you were proud of what you did." She shook her head fiercely. "I was stupid, I was insecure, I cared too much about what people thought. I thought I thought he was everything. You thought he was better than me. Her lips parted, she didn't deny it. Good. Honesty is painful, necessary, cleansing. Truth is, I continued, you and Dante didn't break me, you revealed me. She frowned. What does that mean? It means you showed me who deserved space in my future. Her voice cracked, and I'm not one of them. No, I said, you're not. Her eyes filled instantly, tears trembling on the edge. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. I didn't stay to watch her break. I walked away. Because revenge isn't about shattering someone violently. It's about handing them the mirror they've avoided for a decade. After dealing with both of them separately, I knew the final strike needed to be delivered publicly. Not because I wanted an audience, but because truth hits harder when said out loud. The class president called for attention, tapping the mic. We're going to have an open mic moment, anyone who wants to say a few words. I stepped forward. The room fell silent. I walked up to the stage, took the mic, scanned the faces of the people who once watched me drown. 10 years ago, I began, most of you had an opinion about me. Some people shifted uncomfortably. Some of you thought I was weak. Some of you thought I was forgettable. Some of you thought I wouldn't survive high school, let alone anything after. My eyes found Dante, then Skylar. They both froze. But you were all wrong. I let the silence stretch. I did survive. In fact, I rebuilt myself from the ashes you handed me, and I didn't come back to brag. I didn't come back to make anyone feel small. People looked confused, hopeful. I smiled. A slow, dangerous, elegant smile. I came back to show you what happens when you try to drown someone who learns to breathe underwater. A murmur rippled through the room. I wasn't done. To Dante and Skylar, I said openly, voice steady, calm, polite, merciless. You didn't break my heart, you exposed yours. You showed me exactly who you are. And the funny thing is, all these years, you punished yourselves more than I ever could. Gasps. Whispers. Tension thick as smoke. Revenge isn't always fire, I continued. Sometimes it's cold, silent. Sometimes the best revenge is building an ocean so vast that the people who drowned you realize they can't swim. I placed the mic back on the stand. Thank you, enjoy the rest of your night. I walked off the stage slowly, letting the weight of my words settle like dust on old memories. No shouting. No spectacle. No dramatic chaos. Just truth. And truth is cruel enough. The rest of the night shifted like gravity had changed. People approached me differently, with respect, with caution, with admiration. Some apologized, some stayed far away. And Dante. He left the moment the speech ended. Skylar. She cried in the bathroom for 20 minutes. Not because I attacked them. Because I didn't. Because they realized the person they threw away became the one person they could never reach again. That's the most painful revenge. Not violence. Not humiliation. Not payback. Becoming someone they're unworthy to stand beside. As my driver pulled away from the gym, I looked out the window at the school shrinking behind me, the place where I died, and the place where I rose again. I whispered 6 final words, not with bitterness but with closure. This ocean was worth every tear. Because the truth was simple. They thought my tears made me weak. Not knowing they were filling the ocean I'd drown them in. And I did. Quietly. Completely. Finally.